Chapter 19. From the Garvin County Sun-Tribune, May 3, 2008. Reporter Angela Dash. Lin Young, 16. When I see what he's done, it breaks my heart, Shailene Young says when asked to describe her daughter's injuries. I'm grateful Lin's still alive, but the bullet made permanent damage on her arm. She was an all-state violin player. Now that's gone. Her fingers don't work right anymore. She can't play. Young was hit in the forearm, the impact of the bullet shattering her wrist and causing extensive nerve damage in her arm. After 4 surgeries, Young still has limited use of her third finger and thumb. It's my right arm too, Young says, so I'm having a hard time writing. I'm trying to learn to write with my left hand, but my friend Abby is dead, so I don't complain too much about my arm. He could definitely have killed me too. After the student council meeting, Mom bullied Dr. Healer's secretary into shoving us into his schedule. Your mom says you left the student council meeting upset, Val, Dr. Healer said before I'd even sat down on the couch. I thought I detected a hint of annoyance in his voice. I wondered if he would be coming home late in order to accommodate me. I wondered if at home his wife was keeping his plate warm in the oven and his kids were doing their homework in front of the fire, waiting for Daddy to come home and play cowboys and Indians with them. That's how I always envisioned Dr. Healer's home life. Sort of 1950s TV perfect, with a patient, loving family and never a personal problem to be had. I nodded. Yeah, but it's not like it's a crisis or anything. You sure? Your mom says someone was running after you then. Anything happen? I considered his question. Should I tell him yes, something happened? Should I tell him that what happened was that I publicly abandoned Nick? That they'd all finally gotten it through my head that Nick was bad? Should I tell him that I felt guilty as hell about it? That I caved to popular kids' pressure and I was so ashamed by it? Oh, I tried to sound nonchalant. I dropped my calculator and didn't realize it. She was trying to give it back to me. I'll get it tomorrow in first period. No big deal. Mom's just paranoid. I could tell by the way he inclined his head that he wasn't buying a word of what I was saying. Your calculator? I nodded. And you were crying about it. The calculator. I nodded again, looking down at the floor. I chewed my bottom lip to keep from trembling. Must be some calculator, he mused. Must be a really good calculator. When I still said nothing, he continued on in slow, soft, measured words. I'll bet you feel really bad about dropping a calculator like that. Like maybe you feel like you should have taken better care of that calculator. I looked up at him. His face was stony. Something like that, I said. He nodded, shifted in his chair. It doesn't make you a bad person, Valerie, for forgetting a calculator every now and then. If you end up not being able to find it and needing to get a new calculator, well, there are lots of good calculators out there. I chewed my lip harder and nodded. A few days later, Mrs. Tate was hanging out at the office copy machine when I came to pick up my tardy slip. I tried to slip away unnoticed, but the secretary always talked so loud, and when she practically screamed, "You have a doctor's note, Valerie?" Tate turned around and saw me. She motioned at me to follow her, and we walked back into her office, me with a pink tardy slip in my hand. She closed the door behind us. Her office looked like it had been cleaned out recently. The stacks of books were still on the floor, but had been pushed into one central area. There were no used fast food burger wrappers on her desk, and her wobbly file cabinet had been replaced by a shiny new black one. She had moved all of her pictures on top of that cabinet, giving her desk a bare, uncluttered look, even though it still housed volumes of loose papers, topped haphazardly one on top of another. I sat in the chair opposite her desk, and she edged one butt cheek up onto the corner of her desk. She used a manicured fingernail to tuck a stray piece of frizz back into her bun and smiled at me. How are you doing, Valerie? She asked in the soft voice, like I was so fragile the wrong volume would collapse me. I wished the secretary outside had used that voice, and that Mrs. Tate would just talk to me normally. It's good, I guess, I said. I waved the pink slip in my ear. Doctor's appointment, my leg. She glanced down. How is your leg? It's okay, I guess. Good, she said. Have you seen Dr. Healer lately? Just a few days ago, after the student council meeting. Good, good, Mrs. Tate said, nodding emphatically. Dr. Healer's a great doctor from what I hear, Valerie. Very good at what he does. I nodded. When I thought about all the times I felt most validated, safest, Dr. Healer was usually involved in one way or another. Mrs. Tate stood and walked around her desk. She plopped into her chair, which creaked just a little under her weight. Listen, I want to talk to you about lunch, she said. I sighed. Lunch still wasn't my favorite time of day. The Commons felt so haunted to me, and Stacy and I still passed one another at the condiment table, where she would go to my old friends, pretending she never knew me, and I would go out into the hallway, pretending that what I wanted more than anything in the world was to eat alone on the hallway floor outside the boys' restroom. I've seen you out in the hallway every day, Mrs. Tate said, as if she'd read my mind. How come you're not eating in the Commons? She leaned forward, propping her elbows on her desk. She kept her hands clasped together in front of her like she was praying. Jessica Campbell was in here yesterday. She said she's invited you to eat lunch at her table, but you won't do it. Is that true? Yeah. She asked a while back. It wasn't anything personal or anything. I was just busy, working on an art project. My hand involuntarily stroked the cover of my black spiral notebook. You don't take art. This is a personal project. I take a private art class at the community center, I lied. Mrs. Tate would know it was a total lie, but I didn't care. Look, it's nothing against Jessica. I just want to be alone. Besides, I seriously doubt Jessica's friends want me there. Ginny Baker sits at that table. She can't even look at me. Ginny Baker is taking a little leave of absence from school. I had no idea. My face burned. I opened my mouth and then closed it again. It's not your fault, Valerie, if that's what you're thinking. Ginny has a lot of trauma to work through, and she struggled with coming back to school ever since the incident. She's worked it out with her teachers and will be fine studying from home for a while. Jessica really seems to be reaching out. You shouldn't run away from it. I'm not running away, I said. I went to a student council meeting. It's just... Mrs. Tate stared at me over her nose, her arms crossed across her chest. I sighed. I'll think about it, I said, meaning, hell no, I'm not sitting with those guys. I stood, gathering my books tighter in my arms. Mrs. Tate looked at me for a beat and then stood up too. Listen, Valerie, she said, tugging on the bottom hem of her suit jacket, which looked tight and uncomfortable. I didn't want to have to do this, but eating outside the Commons without teacher permission is not allowed anymore. Mr. Angerson has put a ban on all solitary student activity. What does that mean? Means that if you're seen hanging out by yourself without permission, you'll be getting detentions. For a second, I didn't know what to say. Is this a prison now? I wanted to shout. Are you wardens now? But she'd probably answer, we've always been that. So I let it go. Whatever, I said, and started for the door. Valerie, she said, and tugged on my elbow lightly. Just give them a try. Jessica really wants to make it work. Make what work? I asked. Am I the class project now? Am I some sort of big joke? Why can't she just leave me alone? They are fine leaving me alone before. Mrs. Tate shrugged, smiled. I think she just wants to be friends. But why? I wanted to scream. Why does Jessica Campbell suddenly want to be my friend? Why is she suddenly nice to me? I don't need friends, I said. Mrs. Tate blinked at me, a crease between her eyebrows, her lips pulled in on themselves. I sighed. I just want to get my schoolwork done and graduate, I said. Dr. Healer thinks that's what I should concentrate on right now, just keeping things in line. The last wasn't exactly true. Dr. Healer had never given me any sort of directive to dig deep and get it done, or any of that nonsense. Mostly, Dr. Healer was about keeping me from killing myself. When Mrs. Tate didn't say anything else, I took that as my cue to leave. I walked out of there. my leg throbbing from being poked and prodded at the doctor's office this morning, my tardy slip in my hand, not thinking about anything other than how I was going to get out of having to go to lunch today. Chapter 20. From the Garvin County Sun-Tribune, May 3, 2008, reporter Angela Dash. Amanda Kinney, 67. Kinney, Garvin High's head custodian of 23 years, was nicked in the knee by a stray bullet while ushering kids to safety in a nearby supply closet. The closet was already open on account of Aya's putting fresh bags in the trash can, she tells reporters from her home, her knee heavily bandaged and propped up on some pillows. I just jammed kids up in there until I couldn't fit no more and then closed the door. I don't even think he knew we was in there. I didn't know I was shot until one of the kids told me I was bleeding. I looked down and my pants was all covered in it, and there was a little tear in the knee. Kinney, who's been known to befriend many Garvin High students, knew LaVille well. Actually, he lived just a few blocks down from me, so I knew him ever since he moved to Garvin. Thought he was a real nice kid. Seemed kind of mad for no reason sometimes, but nice kid. His mom's a real nice person, too. This has got to be tearing her up. Sorry I'm late, I said, rushing in and flopping onto the sofa. I reached out and grabbed the Coke that Dr. Healer had set on the coffee table for me, like he always did. Had Saturday detention, and it ran over because the teacher got off on some lecture and lost track of time. No problem, Dr. Healer said. I had paperwork to catch up on anyway. But I caught him toss a little sideways glance at the clock. I wondered if he had Little League games he was missing today. Maybe his daughter's gymnastics meet. Maybe a lunch date with his wife. Why the detention? I rolled my eyes. Lunch. Didn't eat in the commons like they want me to, so I got detentions every day, and then on Friday, Ingerson gave me Saturday detention. Thinks he's going to break me, I guess, if I have enough detentions. But it's not going to work. I don't want to eat in there. Why not? Who am I going to eat with? It's not like I can just walk up to some random person and go, "Hey, can I sit here?" And they'd be all, "Sure." My old friends won't even let me sit with them. What about the other girl, the one in student council? Jessica's friends aren't my friends, I said. They never were. That's why Nick and I had them on the hate. I stopped abruptly, surprised at myself for almost mentioning the hate list so casually. I tried to shrug it off, switch gears. Ingerson's just got a thing about school solidarity, so he doesn't look bad on TV. That's his problem, not mine. Sounds like it's not just his problem. Saturday detentions aren't ideal ways to spend your weekend, are they? I could swear he flicked another glance at the clock. Whatever, I don't care. I think maybe you care more than you want to admit. What would happen if you gave it a try just one day? I had no answer for that. Mom was gone when I got out of session. She'd left a post-it note on the outside of Dr. Healer's door, saying she was running an errand and would be right back, to wait for her in the parking lot. I got to the note before Dr. Healer noticed it, ripped it down, and shoved it in my pocket. If he saw it, he'd feel obligated to stay longer, and I felt bad enough as it was. Plus, I was done talking. I left the office building and stood outside for a moment, not sure what to do with myself. I was going to have to lie low so Dr. Healer wouldn't see me when he walked out. I considered scooting behind the row of hedges on the side of the building, but wasn't sure if my leg would let me do much scooting. Plus, there was some sort of animal under there. I could hear things rustling around, and I saw the branches jerk twice. I shoved my hand into my pockets and ambled across the parking lot, kicking pebbles with my toes as I walked. Soon I'd reached the sidewalk. I stopped and looked around. It was either hedges or the business district across the highway, or be spotted by Dr. Healer and go back in for an extended session. No thanks. I pulled my hands out of my pockets and waited at the edge of the sidewalk for the cars to pass. Maybe I could find Mom's car at Stop and Shop, in the strip mall just on the other side of the highway. There was a clearing and cars, and I jogged, limped across.